Hey, what's going on, guys? The last chapter of Vinland Saga has come out, and yeah, it's quite a somber one, but very beautiful in a lot of ways. This one is called The End of a Long Journey, The Dawn of a New One Begins. Now, it starts off with Thorfinn handing Pomulk a bag of wheat, and he's like, hey, this is for you. You know, it's a really sturdy crop, so even though I didn't really have the time to teach you how to grow it, it's going to survive on its own. It's going to be very useful to you in the future. Now, he's wondering where Niska is at the moment, but yeah, they don't really know. And this is going to play a factor at the end of the chapter, but we'll talk about that when we get there. Thorfinn and Pomulk then share some farewells together, and then Thorfinn changes his attention over to Puin. And Puin is very accepting of his kindness. You know, he extends his arm forward, and they embrace each other in a handshake. So this is quite a difference from, you know, how things were when they first started on the island. Not the island, the mainland. You know, they were very at odds with one another. Well, it was very one-sided. Puin was very distrustful of the Nords, and, you know, through his dream work and, you know, just through his natural biases, he just didn't trust them. And Thorfinn had to struggle very hard to earn that trust and earn that sort of respect. So it's really nice to see that Thorfinn, even though he's leaving, even though he has to sort of give up on the journey, he made friends along the way, and he sort of made those inroads for future settlements. So yeah, it's somber in some ways. It feels like a failure, but in certain ways, it feels like a success. Now, as they're sailing off, Thorfinn notices Gaialqui off in the distance. And Thorfinn is not going to mince his words here. He tells Gaialqui, throw away the sword. It's only going to cause you more harm in the future. You know, Thorfinn tells Gaialqui, you will succumb to the call of violence, and it's a lesson that Thorfinn learned very well in his early years, and he tried to teach others. You know, he tried to teach Einar and Ivar and Styrik, like, look, if you go on this path, you're just going to create more difficulty for yourself. Like, it's not going to end well. Like, maybe you'll survive, maybe, but in the end, you're going to lose friends, family. You're going to lose your own sanity in a way, and that's what happened to Thorfinn. Like, when he was just solely bent on revenge, going after Askeladd, he lost all his personality. He just became a ball of hatred. And, you know, no one seems to learn this lesson unless they learn it firsthand. Thorfinn seems to bang that drum time and time again, like, hey guys, I'm telling you, I live this, I know what's gonna happen, and it's just one of those things, man. Like, no matter how many times someone tells you, you just can't learn it until you actually do it yourself. And but it doesn't mean that Thorfinn shouldn't try to change things for the better. And unfortunately, Gaialqui's not going to give up that sword. He raises it up into the air, and he's embracing that warrior culture. And even though we don't know what's going to happen to him in the future, based on, you know, what happened in the manga, anytime someone sort of embraces this culture, it doesn't end too well for them. You know, they learn a very harsh lesson, whether it's a missing arm or leg or even their life. So, you know, the spiral of hatred continues. Now, as they're sailing away, Bug-Eye starts pulling in a small little boat. And wouldn't you know, Niska's on the boat. Now, obviously, this is not too surprising. I mean, Yukimura hinted at this several times that, you know, Niska wanted to be his wife, and Bug-Eyes even said it a few times. So, like, there was this, like, playful relationship with the two of them. So, yeah, I think it was pretty much expected that this was going to happen in the end. And it's very cute and wholesome. So, yeah, and the very interesting part about it is, like, they don't want to go to Vinland. They don't want to go back to Greenland. They just want to create their own life. And I'm not really sure where they're going to go. I mean, we saw how hard it was for the Nords to create their own life on that island, because there's a lot of different things you gotta keep in mind. Like, you gotta grow, you gotta harvest, you gotta hunt animals, you gotta ward off enemies. Like, the two of them by themselves, I don't know how they're gonna make it, but they feel like they have a chance, so, you know, that's what they're gonna do. And I gotta say, this last shot that we see of Bug-Eyes is quite the difference from how he was introduced in the manga. You know, when he was introduced, he was just kind of this jovial character that was always sort of getting into trouble, and he was comedic relief. And now he looks very, I don't know, he just looks like he's grown up in a lot of ways, you know? Like, he just looks very sure of himself and very confident, and he's not the butt of jokes anymore. So it's really cool to see that progress for him as a character. Now the others bid him farewell and they separate. So yeah, that's the beginning of their journey. They're going to start their own life together somewhere far away. So yeah. Now, I found this next part really instructive. I'm just going to read it verbatim. It says, "The Saga of Greenlanders, a 13th century manuscript, describes 6 voyages of Europeans to the land of North America. They called it Vinland. Thorfinn Karlsefini's settlement project was the 5th of these, and seems to have been the largest one." So that's kind of a cool little insight. Like, I knew the Vikings made it to Vinland, North America, but I had no idea that they made 6 voyages like this. Like, I thought it was just like a few, maybe like 1 or 2 or something. So that's kind of interesting to know about. Anyway, back on track. The various Nords make their way back to the women and the children, and obviously the women and the children are very happy to see that their husbands are still alive. And it's such a sweet moment when Thorfinn finally sees Gudrid, and just the happiness and the overwhelming emotions that you can see on her face. It's just so heartwarming. Like she probably didn't know whether or not Thorfinn was actually going to see his baby. Like, if you remember, things were getting kind of tense there with the Lanu, and Gudrid gave birth to the baby, so Thorfinn is yet to see his own child. So it's glad that he actually got to pull this off. And, like, many of us were thinking, because in history, Thorfinn dies at the age of 27, so a lot of us were thinking, like, oh crap, is he going to die before he sees his own child? Like, I mean, that was kind of like the thing. Like, does Yukimura go with history, or does he sort of spice things up and give Thorfinn a happy ending in a way? And he decided to go with the happy ending, and I'm really glad that he did, because it would have been so tragic if he died the way he did and never got to see his child or Gudrid again. Like, it would have just been like, oh my god, like, ugh. And then we transition over to Pamuk. He's planting the fields, he's making the wheat, and there's no words in this part of the chapter. It's just images, and in a way, it's very tranquil and serene, and someone really put it very well on Reddit, and I just wanted to read that. "A story that begins as a tale of revenge ends on a footnote of peace, growth, change, and humility." And that's just so apropos, because, like, it's such a stark difference from how the story started. Thorfinn was this angry ball of rage, and all he thought about was one singular purpose: killing Askeladd, fulfilling his revenge and avenging his father. And it ends on a completely different perspective. Thorfinn has grown up. He's learned that war is not the end all to be all. It's not the most important thing in the world. What's important is growing your family and your community. And even though it might be impossible to change others' perspectives, you have to keep on trying. Like, it reminds me of David Goggins in a way, the ultra athlete. Like, he talks about, like, it doesn't matter what you did the day before or the year before. You just got to wake up that next morning and keep putting in the work. And no excuses, no distractions. You just got to do it. And that's kind of Thorfinn's mission, is that maybe peace is impossible. Maybe sort of changing people's minds is not going to happen overnight, but you have to keep on trying over and over again. And eventually, you will see some progress. It's not going to happen immediately, but you will see that change. And I think that's kind of Yukimura's sort of overall message, is that, like, the world's not going to change overnight. Cultures, governments, all this stuff is going to take a long time, but you as a person can make a small little difference as long as you stay the course and as long as you stick to the beliefs that you believe in. So yeah, just a very powerful message. And what an ending, guys. Like, wow, like, it's so sad, because, like, I haven't been invested in this manga as long as other people, but, like, I started reading it in 2019, after the first season of the anime, and, like, it's been a part of my life for every month now for the last 6 years, and like it's so sad to see it go, but so beautiful in a lot of ways. At least it got an ending that it deserved. Like I know a lot of us who read Vinland Saga also read Vagabond and Berserk, and that's one of the complaints is that great stories, but we just didn't get the endings that we wanted, and at least for Vinland Saga, we can say, look, we got the ending, and it's a complete story in that regard. So, really happy about that. But anyway, big announcement. I'll have the entire timeline video for Vinland Saga out tomorrow. So look out for that, guys. And tell me what you guys thought of this last chapter. Tell me what you thought of the whole story as a whole, and I'll catch you guys later.